Welcome everyone to this webinar hosted jointly by Expleo and Siemens. We have a packed agenda today. Uh, we have three sections to the webinar. So the first section is we'll give you an introduction to our partnership with Siemens, and then spend a few minutes on our test automation services and solution offerings, and then get into a thought leadership roundtable discussion with three of our participating customers. So let's get started. So for this first section, we have Daniel Flick, VP of Alliances from Siemens Digital Industries, and Manoj Patil, Director of Strategic Alliances. My name is Tarun Pilar. I'm the business head for PLM, Engineering and Manufacturing Services at Expleo USA, Trissential. So Expleo has been a technology and software partner with Siemens since mid-2000, since 2005. And as part of this partnership, we have very closely worked with Siemens R&D teams, the Teamcenter R&D team, in building a test automation framework. This framework is used on a daily basis by Siemens for testing Teamcenter minor and major releases. Over the years, we have automated over 8,000 plus test cases that have been executed over 600,000 times, delivering over 85% efficiencies. And as you can see, automated test cases are now one of the leading indicators for the build, for each Teamcenter build. And as part of the extension of our partnership, we have entered into a SI partnership with Siemens from early this year that leverages us to jointly extend this framework to all our Siemens customers worldwide. So that's very exciting. And we're excited to extend this service offering to all Siemens customers worldwide. So with that, I'd like to request Daniel Flick to share a few comments on the value of Expleo as a partner and our joint initiative.
Great. Thank you very much, Tarun, and thank you also to April. First of all, I'm honored to be able to present to you today regarding this relationship between Siemens and Expleo. For myself, Daniel Flick, I am the Vice President of Americas Alliances here at Siemens. I have actually been at Siemens for 15 years, where we built this program to most effectively go to market with key partners in the area of software and services. So you can imagine over the years, this program has evolved pretty greatly. As Tarun has explained how their relationship with Siemens has grown, so has the program. In the world of a strategic alliance ecosystem, sometimes we use the word trusted partner lightly, but I would say in this particular case, Expleo truly is a trusted partner of Siemens. And the relationship that's been developed and built since 2005 has now gone into an entirely different dimension as a strategic alliance partner, working within that, within the ecosystem on behalf of our mutual clients. In particular, Expleo has been driving important functions within Teamcenter value. Obviously in test automation, that has provided something that goes beyond apparent value to something that becomes intrinsic to how we adopt and how we utilize this solution. And Expleo's participation in that has been key. As we have developed the strategic alliance, we've also looked at the featuring joint solutions between our two companies. We're marrying the Siemens campaigns, value-added solutions, and with actually having Expleo adopt, accelerate, or extend those. So I think you'll find that very interesting also by the end of this discussion. In particular, this entire relationship is designed to enhance the customer experience. And I think our experience with Expleo has always showed that we're driving value for customers, either in the time to adopt, time to go live, critical quality issues and everything as well. But in kind of signing off, I think it's important to note that Expleo cuts across the various application areas of Siemens, including PLM, digital engineering, manufacturing, and driving these capabilities so as it's simpler, more effective, and efficient as we go into the future of digital enterprise with our customers, especially in the area of now cloud adoption, SaaS, and the rest. So Tarun, I want to thank you very much for having Siemens participate today, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Daniel. So one of the other things that this partnership allows Expleo to do is to expand our portfolio of service offerings beyond quality assurance and test automation. So we're also, as second phase of this initiative gets kicked off in later part this year, we will also be more engaged in providing services around consulting, best practices, digital transformation roadmaps, strategy building for our customers, and also solution deployment, so end-to-end deployment of Teamcenter and Siemens portfolio solutions. We also come from a very strong background in engineering services. Our parent company has been in the space for over 40 years, working with a lot of customers in the automotive and aerospace verticals, primarily globally, in terms of new product development and delivery. So we're very close to working with PLM tools and CAD tools. It's close to our heart and backbone of the business from an engineering services point of view. And we look forward to extending those services as an extension of our partnership going forward. So with that, I'll go to the next section to give you guys a quick overview of the test automation services that we provide. And before we go there, I'd like to spend a couple minutes on introducing Expleo Group as a company to those of you that might be unfamiliar with us. So Expleo is headquartered in France. It's primarily an engineering services and IT services company. We are over 15,000 technology experts globally, with over $1 billion in revenue and present in over 30 countries. We have, depending on where you're located, we have onshore, nearshore, and offshore capabilities as different sections of our delivery models. And here are some of the key industry verticals that we are focused on, primarily aerospace, automotive, and high tech. In terms of our service offerings, we can broadly categorize these into three buckets. Consulting services, where we help customers with their agile engineering change, enterprise change, and digital transformation, business transformation journeys. Quality has been an integral part of the Expleo offerings. Some of you might have worked with SQS in the past. SQS was the largest independent software quality assurance company in the world, headquartered in Germany. SQS was acquired by Expleo and is now part of the Expleo Group since the last few years. So we are still working with the same team as part of the Expleo offering. And then, of course, we have our engineering services that is a large chunk of our business, focusing on product design and development, leveraging PLM as an enabler, CAD and PLM as enablers to deliver our deliverables to our customers worldwide. So since this webinar is more on test automation, let's take a closer look at what we have to offer in terms of test automation services. Some of the challenges that our customers typically face in this new era is the need for frequent upgrade cycles. So everybody is moving more towards agile and CI/CD processes. You have continuous integration, continuous deployment. It's become kind of the buzzword that everybody wants to move towards as your enterprise IT footprints mature over time and need to mature faster than before. So this is one of the typical number one challenges that we see working with customers, that automation is required in order as an enabler to help this digital transformation and business transformation journeys become real for them. The other thing is some of the customers that we work with have come to us with automation being expensive with some past experience, and that's primarily because they're probably working off of technologies that became obsolete, or there wasn't really a framework idea of reusable assets. And I'll come to that in a minute here in terms of why we differ in terms of that, in terms of providing that automation framework, and why we can take away that burden and cost of customers having to maintain that framework perpetually. Manual testing is always a bottleneck. Typically, you have your lead engineering users doing manual testing. It's not the best thing that they'd like to spend their time on. So it's always a challenge trying to get the creme de la creme crowd of your engineering participate in manual testing. And you'll see various efficiencies because, that could be distracted, other priorities, and always prone to human error. Insufficient coverage of end-to-end processes, PLM, ERP, as the transformation journeys become more complex and you have more end-to-end processes to make intelligent business decisions, it becomes more and more important to make sure that your automation, QA automation processes actually are broader in scope and include all aspects of your business decision points. Well, the reason outcome of these are typically delayed rollouts, issues in production, having to deal with end user satisfaction, and in some cases, lack of test data management best practices. Nothing's been defined. Where do we start from? So we can help with all of these challenges. One of the key enablers for us and a differentiator is this framework. And as Daniel mentioned, with the ongoing partnership with Siemens, we've been building this framework and maintaining it over the last 15, 16 years. So it's a very robust framework that we bring to the table as you engage with us. It has over 3,000 reusable assets, and that is key in delivering these 40% cost savings. So we're able to do something a lot faster than somebody who does not have a reusable framework. So right out of the bat, we deliver 40% cost savings for creating new test assets, and ongoing maintenance costs are also significantly low because the base framework is maintained as a continual effort between the ongoing partnership between Expleo and Siemens. What does this mean for our customers? You have increased predictability of failure points. You have reusable assets that can be used across different business units within your organization. You have better end-to-end coverage in terms of test automation. And all of this boils down to a lower total cost of ownership for your PLM initiative. So it helps you put dollars back in your pocket for investment in other areas within the PLM space and takes away the anxiety and around automation and the QA process going closer to a rollout. We also have additional things like we provide flexibility in being able to select data sets that you want to execute with your automation initiative. We help with optimization of the test cases. We don't want to overdo it, definitely don't want to underdo it. So what's the right mix of test cases for a given rollout or a target production date? So we help figure all of that out and take away that pain point. So overall, today we have about 300 PLM consultants just focused on the Teamcenter initiative. We've automated over 20,000 test cases for all our customers worldwide. These have been executed over 1 million times. So it's a very robust, reusable framework that we bring to the table and have our customers benefit from it. We've also developed a few accelerators along the way around the framework, one of which is called a heat map. So based on your current release and target release, Teamcenter and CAD and any other associated Siemens portfolio application, we help you determine what we call a heat map. So we identify areas of high, medium, and low risk, and these areas are then tied in the back end to test cases. So this way, we take away, so this is a better risk management approach to being able to select the optimum number of test cases to ensure that your production rollout is successful. We also offer services for CAD version mapping. So if you have a multi-CAD environment, we help customers determine what's the right version of CAD to work with the right version of PLM and other applications that you have. We've also optimized the execution with SOA-based best practices. So something that would, after automation, if it takes 8 hours, with SOA, we can reduce it further down to 2 hours. So just to give an example, something that was taking 45 days for one of our customers was reduced down to 7 days in terms of execution using the SOA methodology. So significant improvements in execution and further reducing execution time and costs. We've already spoken about the framework and the reusable assets. As part of this framework, we also have the T4S integration with Teamcenter and SAP, so we can handle end-to-end automation of end-to-end business processes, not just from the PLM side, but also from SAP's perspective. We've also done load and performance testing for a lot of our customers. and also access and security validation prior to new rollouts. Key takeaways, working with Expleo, your cost of automation are going to be significantly lower because of these reusable assets, because of the ongoing partnership that we have with Siemens. And this is something that's going to go on for all future releases of Teamcenter. So anytime you're going to have a major or a minor release upgrade, you have access to all these reusable assets that will significantly lower the cost of maintenance and building your automation assets. Better coverage, end-to-end business process between CAD and ERP systems, and we continually add more reusable components to these assets, to the framework. And you're able to perform more upgrade cycles in a year, enabling CI/CD processes, supporting your digital transformation and business transformation initiatives within your organizations. So with that, I'd like to end the presentation on our service offerings, and we'll move into the next section here, which is a thought leadership roundtable discussion with three of our participating thought leaders here, customers. Mark Halbish, who's a digital transformation director at TI Fluid Systems. Tony Dorazio, who's a release and test manager at Wabtec Corporation. And Surendra Meduri, who's senior director engineering IT solution delivery at Applied Materials. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. So I'll start off with a few questions here, and we'll go around the table. One of the first questions that I wanted to ask is, what were some of your challenges that you were facing before you started on the test automation initiative at your organization? And we can start with Mark, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, yeah, thank you. I think the biggest challenge that we faced was just consistency and bandwidth to be able to perform testing to assure build quality. We have limited, or we did have, and we still have limited involvement and capacity from our business colleagues to be able to participate in application testing, and it was a bit of a struggle, and had been a bit of a struggle to get the sufficient testing done in each build cycle, in each upgrade, and even in cycles such as operating system patching to make sure that the quality of the build was there, that we had no performance regression, we had no functionality regression, and that our testing was robust and repeatable. And so we just weren't doing it, and as such we were impacting our business. We were putting builds out, and there were problems, and there were functionality issues, and you know, that was what drove us to start doing this. And we'd heard about SQS, as you were in those days, now Expleo Trissential, of course, and we'd seen a lot of presentations and heard a lot of talk about you guys at the global Siemens user events, and we'd heard about the Siemens development organization who were using you and partnered with your company to do the testing of PLM before it was even released to customers, and that impressed us, and so that's what got us talking with you guys in the beginning.
Thanks, Mark. Tony?
I really think Mark pretty much hit on everything I was going to say as well. I mean, to a T. I mean, we were dealing with a lot of, needing business testers to come in and taking up their time from doing actual other work and preparing, for other improvements with different tools. And then we didn't have documented test cases even at the time. We were, for a bad or worse thing to say, we're, a lot of times or every release we were kind of shooting at the hip, getting a bunch of people in the room and watching them do testing and then checking off line by line on some of these basic functionalities. And it wasn't efficient. It wasn't, it slowed us down as far as being able to do more releases in a shorter period of time. And our release deployments were kind of all over the place. And lots of changes in the positive direction after incorporating Expleo and the testing teams into to our release process.
Thanks, Tony. Surendra, would you like to add something?
Yeah, sure. As Mark and Tony mentioned, pretty much all are obviously applicable for us. Certain things which somewhat different environment we were going through, I can highlight. As company was growing, both organically, inorganically, there were a lot of continuous change requests from business as well as the business transformation programs as a part of mergers and acquisition was one of the challenge which drives frequent changes as well as upgrades. And on the architectural perspective, we are one of the unique customer of Siemens using two-tier rich client, on-premise, on-cloud VDIs, heavily about 60 to 70% of customizations on top of the out-of-the-box with the 4 mechanical CAD tools, 1 ERP, 1 electrical CAD tool, integrations on top of it, in-house developed custom web apps for complexity in terms of the application architecture. And then on top of it, as a Siemens changed the agile methodology of releasing their versions, also triggers lifecycle upgrades and so on, keeping all this in consideration. The robustness, the short cycle time for testing, and the quality are the predominantly driving factors. And it was almost a 10-year journey for us when we started with SQS 2014. And over a period of time, still today, we are not able to do 100% test automation. I don't think we ever be able to reach to that. But these are all some of the challenges with the cloud migration coming in our strategic initiative. It's also going to be helpful to address CI/CD pipeline automation and so on.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Surendra. The second question I had was, I think all of you answered that already. Why Expleo was chosen. So you heard about us in the events, and you knew that we were working with Siemens R&D, and you made that decision. So I'll move to the next one. Now that you've automated hundreds, thousands of test cases and been working with us for 8-9 years here, how would you categorize the experience now? How's it going in terms of the initiatives around CI/CD organizationally, and anything that you can share in terms of the benefits that you see? So Surendra, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So initially when we started, it was a slow growth or slow progress, number of test automations, number of test cases being automated in a quarter, and then maintenance, etc. Over a period of time, the stability is the most important. When I say stability is number of test cases successfully get executed at first time from out of the box once you automate is very, very critical and important. Over a period of time, Expleo demonstrated constant improvement in that space. Not only operational improvements, Expleo team has brought new platforms and new frameworks and the new tools as industry is evolving to address the complicated issues, which especially with the multi-CAD and then ERP kind of scenarios, end-to-end integration test scenarios.
All right, thank you, Surendra. And Tony, would you like to add?
Tony, you're on mute.
Tony, you're probably on mute.
Thank you. When I think about the current state of where we are and the benefits that we've achieved over the course of the last 5 or 6 years working with SQS and Expleo, my journey started with implementing a brand new environment and migrating an old environment to it. And we started with manual testing, and immediately we saw improvements, but we still had challenges. And we finally reached some level of maturity with our implementation and went forward with automation. We immediately saw a reduction in costs by half. and an amazingly increase in quality. Since we implemented automation, we haven't introduced a production issue from any release, and running at times as many as a release every 2 months or more frequently. We recently also went through moving our Team Center environments to AWS, and with the use of performance testing, we had a huge improvement as far as quality and performance for the end users across the board. And currently, we're on the tail end of an upgrade, and pretty much the exact same result. Minimal number of issues, being able to identify issues up front and get them resolved, making us able to hit our timelines on to a T, and then even pulling some activities ahead. I think that's been the biggest thing, is that with this use of this automated testing, we have been able to, there's been no delays almost. And I also have to give a little bit to the quality of the Team Center product out of the box. I've seen a huge improvement over the course of the last 15 years with just it's gotten so much better and easier to do these deployments and implementations with testing as well as releases.
Yep. Thanks, Tony. Mark, how's it been working out for you?
Yeah, well, I think our experiences are similar. We're seeing an improved build quality, and we saw that right out of the gate when we started on this journey with Expleo. At that time, we were only using Team Center Rich Client, and we were using it in a multi-site environment. It helped to actually discover several things about our environment, even outside the build cycle, just on current configuration, where we're able to identify some issues, some lack of consistency across multi-site, and discover issues we didn't even realize really existed in the system. And that sort of brought the quality of our configuration up to par fairly quickly. And then just being able to maintain that and having agility in our build cycles and be able to increase the pace of innovation that we're delivering to the business, and doing it with confidence, knowing that we're not going to be breaking the system, we're going to be maintaining performance. That's been extremely helpful. And we're also on a journey into AWS, and in parallel with that, we're upgrading our global network. So we've been using this framework to take performance benchmarks and ensure that, as we transition a site over to our new global network, that the performance at that site is expected. It's where it's expected. It's either equal to or better than where it was before. And so that's been really helpful. As we're going from on-prem multi-site Team Center, we're going to single site on the cloud, and this framework has been phenomenal in being able to validate that now the performance is good and the functionality is there. We've also been able to transition from Rich Client to Active Workspace. So we're basically full-blown Active Workspace in our company now, which has been a huge step forward in usability for the system, and we've been able to deliver quality builds and improve the overall functionality of the system to meet users' needs and expectations on performance of the system. So being very, very positive. I wouldn't say that we've been as lucky as to say we've completely avoided production issues. So we still encounter issues. More often than not, it's because we've realized that we didn't have a test case for that. So what I love about this relationship is that when we do find an issue, we can trace it. Is there a test case that's currently covering that? If not, no, let's get the Expleo team involved, and they can very quickly build a test case for us and enhance our test suite. And that's really been fantastic. So there's a few little tidbits of value that we've achieved out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark, for sharing that. So with that, I have a few more questions, but I'd definitely like to give the attendees and the audience a chance here to voice their questions. So let's move to the Q&A section since we have just passed the bottom of the hour. So for those of you that would like to ask a question, you can submit it through the chat window or raise your hand, and we'll unmute you and give you a chance to ask your question. So while you take some time to do that, just going to go to the next slide here. So for this section, you can ask your question to the panel here, to our Siemens colleagues or to Expleo. Feel free to ask the questions. And April, let me know if you see questions coming in on the chat.
Sure, we have two questions in chat. The first one, sorry, are there efforts to support Teamcenter to SAP integrations? What about the new TCI?
Yes. So we currently are supporting the T4S plugin, which was the older plugin that's currently being used by most of the customers. And as some of you are aware, SAP and Siemens have entered into a new partnership with the release of the new TCI plugin, which is the Teamcenter integrator. I think the first release of that is slated out for October this year. So we are working closely with Siemens and our SAP counterparts in being able to support the TCI plugin in the future from an Expleo perspective. Yeah.
All right, the next question. Outside of test automation.
April,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just want to add one. If the question is around test automation feasibility between Teamcenter to SAP, we just kind of experimented round trip transactions triggering from Teamcenter to SAP and getting confirmation of material created and released and put into plant kind of scenarios. We were able to automate with the UFT and other combination of tools with the wait time and all, keeping in consideration based on the IT infrastructure resources. If that is the question, probably something to be aware of.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Surendra. So for the person who asked that question, if that answers your question, that's great. If not, please feel free to elaborate on your question.
All right, we can go to the next question. Outside of test automation, are there any facets of DevOps that Mark, Tony, or Surendra are using? For example, CI/CD. If so, can you discuss the types of benefits you've seen there with regards to automation of configuration, integration, spinning up dev instances, etc.? That's a lengthy one.
That's a loaded question, so would like to go first.
Yeah, I can go first on that if you like. We are using CI/CD and automated provisioning in our AWS environment. We're using Terraform to deliver automated provisioning, and we've limited it to our DevOps environment at the moment. So we want to stand up test, dev, validation environments. We can now spin those end to end very, very quickly from off a base environment, and it's through full automation. So we've taken what would have been a weeks-long cycle of refreshing our entire test, dev, val environments to now literally being able to do it in hours. So it's, however, it's that that's not specific to Expleo or Trissential, I must add. I mean, that's really just core capability of automation in the cloud. But yes, that's happening.
So
Thanks,
on
Mark.
our front at Applied, Tarun, we have been using the CI/CD recently, and not to the extent what Mark mentioned about spinning of the instances. Still, we are on premise with a multi-site and rich client with a 2-tier. However, we are primarily using the Jenkins orchestration to trigger the automated test cases as and when build is submitted or whenever an approval is happened for test to trigger the regression, etc., but not the entire end-to-end CI/CD pipeline enabled yet.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Surendra. Tony, did you have any comments?
For us, yeah. So for us, from a full CI/CD perspective, we've kind of had we've kind of pushed it to the horizon because of some very specific company projects that got prioritized the last 2 years. It's on our radar right now to get more continuous deployment. We're not quite there yet, but from an environment spin up, just like Mark had said, we're able to take backups from production and spin them up in test environments within hours instead of weeks like it used to take.
Thanks, Tony. So, April, do we have any other questions? April, are you on mute?
I am so sorry. Can you please elaborate on TDD?
I must admit, I'm not sure what they mean by that acronym TDD. So maybe we need some clarification unless someone else knows.
No, I think we'll need an explanation of what that is. Yeah.
Okay. I'll move on to the next. How much % of your code is now automated? How long did it take to arrive to this level of testing?
So I think more appropriately, it's probably how many of your test cases, known test cases, have we automated so far, and how long did that take?
Yeah, I would agree. I would say it's not about percentage of code, it's about how much of the day in the life user experience has been automated through testing. That's how we measure it. And because you're trying to validate that the functions and the tasks that people perform within the system perform as expected. And we've been able to, we've got, excuse me, we've got over 1,100 test cases automated so far, and I would say it represents a very high percentage of daily tasks and daily use cases and user experience scenarios. So I'd say it's up in the 90s. In terms of how long it took us to get there, I would say our initial round, and if I remember back to the beginning of our project, we had, I think, around that time, about 350 to 400 test cases identified. And I think we were able to get those done within, I believe, the first 6 months of the project. It's going back a bit now, but that was part of the original scope of our project. And we got there reasonably quickly. And then we've just grown it organically in time over there. As we went along, as we developed more cases, we identified more cases. That was all rich client at that time. The good news is we were with many of the use cases that we had were still relevant when we went to Active Workspace. It's a different interface, and what you're measuring and how you're measuring it is slightly different. But we were able to reuse that capital to be able to then pivot to Active Workspace testing. So big benefit there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
So from our end, basically, we had a rich client as well as Active Workspace scenarios, predominantly rich client. Use cases are very high with a CAD embedded clients. We saw that some of the test cases not practically possible to automate, either a technical limitation with the tools or the business process. There's a lot of to and fro between the CAD session to Team Center session, etc. So initially we identified what is feasible to automate, what is not feasible from our library. And then based on the usage, number of use cases which are more often used, we categorized as P1, P2, P3, P4, 4 categories. And we emphasized to automate priority 1 first and priority 2 and so on. Right now we are at the 60 to 70% of our test library, which is automatables use cases are completely automated and maintained. And it is a journey over a period of times. We started in 2014, but don't assume that it took really 7 years. There is different priorities in between. We did not pay much focus for some of the years due to other priorities and so on. It all depends on the duration perspective, individual use case and the business situation.
So, and Surendra, I think right now you have 13,000 test cases that we have already automated. So in terms of percentage of coverage, how would you categorize that? Would you say that's 60% coverage for day in the life of a user?
Right. Yeah. So just to clarify, Tarun, just 13,000 test cases.
Yeah.
Anybody, including Siemens, got surprised when we said this number is especially with the multi-site, with the multiple CAD, mechanical CAD tools and so on, was the background just to highlight. And the same use case, if you run from different site, we treat them as a second use case.
Different use, yeah.
So that is how we counted, just to clarify. And then, yes, 60 to 70% range out of that library, we were able to automate, Tarun. And as upgrades, Siemens releases comes up, and especially if the user interface is not much changed, then your maintenance overhead will be reasonably less. Based on the type of changes coming in each release of Teamcenter product, also drives the amount of effort one has to put for maintenance of the existing and ability to automate new cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Surendra, for clarifying that. Tony?
So I think we're somewhere around 30 to 80%, but much higher, like 90% if it's 90 to 95% if it's purely business process testing. It's a lot of the negative testing that we do that is not automated or is not capable of being automated. But we are dealing with some complex automations, as well as we're in the process of doing more right now with our NX custom tools, which is, pretty much the heavy hitters when it comes to business process in our tool today, as far as CAD management and CAD studies and analysis. We definitely are on a growth. Our next coming activities are really focused on maintaining continuously through every release and increasing automation on every area of business process that gets further analyzed. And we're doing that continuously. We're working with the business partners to reevaluate how they're doing, what they're training, how all our test cases are mimicking the actual user activities to a T. And I think that's been one of the biggest driving factors to be able to get a higher percentage of test cases that are valid and ultimately drive to better quality of process with the tool.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
April, do we have any other questions?
Sure. We have 4 more in the queue here. So can you quantify the benefits of a digital thread between Siemens Teamcenter PLM and SAP ERP?
Can you say that one more time?
Can you quantify the benefits of a digital thread between Siemens Teamcenter PLM and SAP ERP?
Yeah. So that's again a very, very complicated and very loaded question. Anybody wants to?
I can speak to that, but not with SAP. We have a different ERP system.
Yeah, go ahead.
From a BOM management perspective, what you're designing and engineering and approved for build is 100% transferred, right? So any loss of data or from to the shop floor is no longer a factor, or having tribal knowledge, if you will, is something that we've dealt with a lot. But the quality to build from what was designed is much higher, as well as we're also doing pure BOM management from Teamcenter to our ERP system.
Thanks, Tony. So I think we'll follow up on that question because it's a little complicated question. It's case by case, so we can definitely take a note here, April, to follow up on that.
Certainly.
Let's go to the next question.
All right. Is the test automation product on the Siemens price list?
Okay, so the test automation product is currently not on the Siemens price list. Manoj Patel, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So hi. Yeah. So currently, as Tarun mentioned, this is not a product offering from Siemens yet. It's purely a service offering. So for Expleo is the only one which is doing this service offering based on this product. We are in the discussion, no firm commitments yet, but we are in the process of formalizing how we can take this to our customers. But at this moment, it's not a Siemens product in the price list. Also, majority of the things that you realize there here is the UFTs and the custom test use cases that has to be built up for the customer. So it will mostly be in the service offerings, as every customer situation is different and the test cases, CI/CD pipeline will be different.
Yeah, thanks, Manoj. And I think Expleo has a privilege of being a unique service provider with our longevity in terms of relationship around these offerings. So I appreciate that. Thank you. April, next question.
Sure. For Expleo, how many or what percentage of your engineers, including test automation engineers, are ISTQB certified?
Yeah, that's called Expleo for us.
Correct, for Expleo.
Okay, so we'll have to come back on that, and we'll get back through an email for that question. Let's go to the next one.
All right, this question is for Tony and Mark. Any experience on test-driven development for Teamcenter and CAD customizations and integrating with CI/CD? Do you want me to repeat that?
No, I can read it here. I'm just looking at the meeting chat to see where the question's written out. We don't. I mean, I guess for me, the keywords there are test-driven development. We don't use testing to drive development. We use testing to validate development. So we go about our development cycle. We identify what enhancements or what upgrades we're applying to the system. We apply them, develop them, put them onto a test environment, and run that test. And then that gives us confidence as to whether we move forward. So we do it for Teamcenter. We do it for CAD customizations. We are not integrating test automation with CI/CD yet. That's not something we've looked at. That's from our company. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
If not, let us know.
For me, we're again with what similar to Mark. Like we haven't fully integrated CDI/CD, but one of the things that we have done, we have integrated our testers with our developers. So there's a daily call that they work together on, and some of their development is done based on the tester's experience with the tool. So that is one thing that we've done, which has drastically reduced increased first time right, and drastically reduced development issues early on, first integration. As well as that same collaboration goes over to the functional team as well, so that they're aware of what's being developed early and what's being planned to be tested and such.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's a really good point. Is what we have our test team, our Expleo team, embedded with our development teams, and so they're aware at all phases of development what's going on. And I guess what we are doing is proactively identifying new test cases that would be required to validate the new functionality we're deploying, as well as double checking that the existing test cases are still relevant and on point for the enhancements we're delivering. So that doesn't wait until the end, until development. That's happening in parallel as part of the development cycle. So that was a good point, Tony.
Thanks. Thank you. Surendra, do you want to comment on that question?
Yeah, basically, I think I go by mostly Mark, what you mentioned. These are the packaged applications. We are not doing a software product here pretty much. In such cases, the test driven versus mostly business process driven. So we go by what development has accomplished, customized, is it working or not as a quality test. When it comes to the CI/CD and the automation, yes, to a certain extent. As soon as the test scenario failed or use case failed, it will generate a Jira incident automatically and assign to the test lead. That kind of automation, some level of CI/CD pipeline already established through Jenkins orchestration.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Surendra. So April, I know we have a little over 5 minutes left. Are there any other questions?
Yes, there's two more.
Okay.
Can you share your experience on the automation scripts maintenance? How frequently changes are updated and the cost effort on this?
Good question. So I guess it comes down to how frequently do you update automation test scripts in your organization based on the code refreshes that you currently have ongoing. And you don't have to answer the question on the cost. I know that's sensitive. So whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can go first. And ours is a monthly. We have monthly releases as well as the quarterly major releases and annual upgrade cycles, something like a Team Center upgrade or NX upgrade and so on. Each of those will trigger these maintenance activities. And about 10 to 15% of the human effort, what we looked at, what we observed over a period of years, is the maintenance, which means the same scripts needs to be updated based on the changes. These changes are triggered by our business process as well as some cases, the application changes coming out of our Team Center out of the box.
Thanks, Surendra. Mark?
Yeah, our experience is that the core functionality use cases and test cases don't require a whole lot of maintenance except for when you do a Team Center upgrade. As you go from one version to the next, and depending on what the content of that upgrade is, that's when you need to do that. But for us, it's more about where the most effort is around our business processes, and particularly around change management and the workflows that we have in change management. We've got those automated to test every little nuance of a workflow, all the action handlers and all of the change loops that can go on inside a workflow, and that as you change that process and you evolve that, and those things are never locked down, never fixed in stone, they're constantly evolving. That does take a bit of work, and it does take a bit of effort.
Thanks,
but
Mark.
that's yeah.
Tony?
I would kind of reiterate what Mark said there. So one of our, at least the last couple of years, the biggest driver has been business process change as they continue to, develop and build more productivity and efficiencies in the tool. That keeps changing some of the workflows. Mostly the workflows is the big impact, as we do test end-to-end constantly because we're doing, full BOM management from initial design all the way to our ERP system. And then also that's kind of, that can be kind of minor, a little bit easier, but we just went through a couple major upgrades, skipping multiple versions of NX and a couple versions of Team Center to do an upgrade. And, it did hit us pretty hard with a kind of probably somewhere between 50 to 60% of automated test cases that had to be touched. But it wasn't that bad. Like it went pretty smoothly. We're actually, one thing we did that I think is a little bit not normal with doing maintenance is that we tried to hit it up front during the upgrade so we could utilize the automation during the upgrade. And we were able to do that and keep, our cycle time down.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
Just to add one quick point is that since Expleo had a partnership with Siemens product development itself, so they do have an early visibility of some of the off-the-shelf changes coming up and test cases, and they would will be aware of it and then maintain on a periodic basis as a part of our maintenance plan, just to let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Surendra. And to put things in perspective, if somebody is looking from a cost perspective, what I can share is that, you've seen by using the framework, typically we deliver 40% cost savings right off the bat for first time automation when you create your test cases. And then for those test cases that have already been automated for maintenance, the cost is further lower. So it's about 15 to 20% of the original cost of automating that test case. So just to put things in perspective, and the reason why we can't put a number around these things is because of the varied levels of complexities and scope. But this should give you a rough idea in terms of computing, the savings for your business case. April, any other questions?
Yes. Let me see here. How much effort did it take for the delegates to pivot existing rich client test cases to active workspace? Is it possible to reuse existing test assets within your test framework?
I referenced that earlier in some of my earlier comments. I'll be happy to take that one first. We did do that. We initially, our test cases were focused on rich client early in our program, and then we rolled out active workspace to our organization. The test case definitions themselves, many of them for the sort of specific cases like item creation, item modification, and so on, and even workflow, they remain relevant. But the framework on which the testing is performed is different for rich client and active workspace. So rich client testing is done, we're doing it on the what was HP is now Micro Focus UFT framework, and that's for desktop application testing. And the active workspace, as it's not an installed application, it's browser based, zero footprint on the client, that we're using a framework called Selenium. And Selenium is designed specifically for that type of testing. So, which in fact we really enjoy it. It's even more agile than what the UFT framework is, and is cheaper as well. So, which we like. So, can you reuse the test cases? Yes. Can you reuse the test assets directly? No. There is some redevelopment needed, but it's the effort hasn't been too bad.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else like to comment on that? Okay, excellent. So I think we are at the top of the hour. So April, do we have any other questions? We can definitely.
We do.
Okay.
Would you like to handle those now, or should we follow up?
Let's follow up because some of our delegates might have other things that are other meetings to attend to. So let's follow up on that through an email. And we'll also create a forum for thought leadership exchange. We'll share that with this community through email. It might be a Slack room or a blog site of a setting where we can exchange and have an ongoing discussion in terms of your initiatives around this space and how we can share knowledge and help other people wanting to embark on this journey.
And I just want to add in the chat, please find the link to our quick 6-question survey that we hope that the attendees would take the less than 1 minute to fill out today. Thank you.
And we'll get back to your questions that were unanswered on this call through email, and we'll reach out to you for that. So thank you all for your participation in this webinar. Special thanks to our panel here, Mark, Albish, Tony, Dorazio, Surendra Veduri, for your time, Daniel Flick, and Manoj Patil. Thank you so much for hosting this with us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye now.